Israel becomes first country to formally recognize Somaliland as an independent state. Well, that's it. Israel is no longer our greatest ally. Israel must go. Free Palestine. Israel has become the first country to formally recognize the self-declared Republic of Somaliland as an independent and sovereign state on Friday. A decision that could reshape regional dynamics and test Somalia's long-standing opposition to secession. Brother, how many billions of dollars have they sucked from our country? If we had an ally that goes to like, oh, this country has just stolen fraudulently billions of dollars from our number one ally who pays for all of our defenses, let's just go ahead and recognize them as a state. What the action? That's not an ally. With allies like this, who needs Russia? Am I right? What the fuck? Friendship ended with Israel. Now Palestine is our new best friend. What the fuck? They're recognizing the people trying to secede from the people sucking us dry? What is going on? All right? Because it's like, there's Somalia, and it's broken up into like multiple different areas. So it's Somaliland versus Jubaland. And we have Minnesota and Maine both fraudulently sending money to both sides of the Civil War. Somalia isn't Somaliland. Somaliland is a region of Somalia that's trying to secede. Yeah, Maine and Minnesota, the fraud in both of those states are going to different sides of a civil war in Somalia. So it doesn't really matter which one is sucking us dry, because they all are. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said Israel would seek immediate cooperation with Somaliland in agriculture, health technology, and the economy. In a statement, he congratulated Somaliland's president, Abdirahman Mohammed Abdulhali, praised his leadership and invited him to visit Israel. Netanyahu said the declaration is in the spirit of the Abraham Accords signed at the initiative of President Trump. The 2020 Accords were brokered by Trump's first administration and included Israel formalizing diplomatic relations with the United Arab Emirates and Bahrain, with other countries joining later. Netanyahu, Foreign Minister Gideon Saar, and Somaliland's president signed a joint declaration of mutual recognition, the Israeli statement said. What the fuck is happening? They were already busy fighting themselves, and then they came over here to defraud our welfare systems because we're gullible and want to believe people are telling the truth even when they're duping us. And we were funding both sides of the Somalian civil war. So, like, I don't understand what the argument here is. Abdulali said in a statement that Somaliland would join the Abraham Accords, calling it a step toward regional and global peace. He said Somaliland was committed to building partnerships, boosting mutual prosperity, and promoting stability across the Middle East and Africa. But Somalia's government condemned Israel's move as an unlawful step and a deliberate attack on its sovereignty, rejecting any recognition of Somaliland, according to a statement from the Prime Minister's office. The federal government affirms its determination to pursue all necessary diplomatic, political, and legal measures in accordance with international law to defend its sovereignty, unity, and internationally recognized borders, the statement said. Is that something Israel normally does? I've never heard of Israel sending the IDF to foreign countries to help them fight anything. Maybe Israel will get some of the scams. Would be nice if America didn't get scammed for a change. It would be nice. Egypt said Foreign Minister Badir Abdelhadi held phone calls on Friday with his counterparts from Somalia, Turkey, and Djibouti to discuss what they described as dangerous developments in the Horn of Africa following Israel's announcement. The ministers condemned Israel's recognition of Somaliland, reaffirmed their full support for Somalia's unity and territorial integrity, and warned that recognizing breakaway regions posed a threat to international peace and security, Egypt's foreign ministry said. The African Union also rejected any recognition of Somaliland, reaffirming its unwavering commitment to Somalia's unity and territorial integrity, and warning that such moves risked undermining peace and stability across the continent, the AU Commission chair said. Somaliland has enjoyed effective autonomy and relative peace and stability since 1991, when Somalia descended into civil war, but the breakaway region has failed to receive recognition from any other country. Over the years, Somalia has rallied international actors against any country recognizing Somaliland. The former British prostate hopes that recognition by Israel will encourage other nations to follow suit, increasing its diplomatic heft and access to international markets. In March, Somalia and Somaliland denied receiving any proposal from the United States or Israel to resettle Palestinians from Gaza, with Mogadishu saying it categorically rejected any such move. What? That's such like a random thing to throw at the end of the article. They weren't even talking about Palestine or Gaza. You don't have any allies other than Japan. Every nation is out to bleed us dry and praise for our downfall. Case in point being Europe. They constantly whine about us while begging us to finance them and prop up their existence. True and real. Japan is our one true ally. I wish we could operate in that manner. Sounds like that's why Israel wants to use them as a dumping ground, maybe? I don't think so. That's still like a really fucking weird thing to have happened. Might not have mentioned it, but that's actually a component of the situation. They want to send Gazans to Somalia so that they can live in their Islamic paradise. But why Somalia, of all Islamic nations that they could be sent to? No Islamic nation on earth wants anyone from Palestine? Well, I don't know about that, but I mean, I guess a question could be posed as to why none of them were taking refugees.
Assalamu alaikum. My name's Peggy Flanagan. I am the Lieutenant Governor of Minnesota, and I'm really honored and humbled to be here with all of you today. I am incredibly clear that the Somali community is part of the fabric of the state of Minnesota.
In what fucking way? Part of the fabric, as in defrauding everyone in the state of Minnesota, I guess. They need to be mothballed. The fabric is actually worn thin.
And when I think of being part of Minnesota and growing up here, the Somali community has always been a part of my Minnesota.
What the fuck is she talking about? What? I highly doubt when this woman grew up, she even saw a single Somalian in Minnesota. What the fuck? You like the history of videos and photos from the 60s, late 90s that show the Somali population help building the modern cities. Mayor Wu said the same exact thing about Boston. She said something like, when you think of the city of Boston's accomplishments, you think of Somalians, and it's like, in what fucking way, dude? What is this just like weird Somalian cocksucking all of our politicians are doing?
So I want to just encourage the community to know that we're with you. We've got your back. I am here shopping today, and just encourage other folks to show up, support our Somali businesses.
You have to be willing to get down and make a commitment to fixing the problem.
Fixing the problem by deporting. Flanagan is also running to fill the seat of Democratic Senator Tina Smith, who announced in February she would not be seeking re-election. There has to be just somebody to run against these people. Like, just some option that's not the Democrats, man.
The Supreme Court has an essential constitution.
Minnesota Rep. Tom Emmer unloaded on the Democratic Senate hopeful, telling Fox News Digital that Flanagan's hijab stunt was a ploy to win over the far-left radicals. I mean, fucking obviously. Does that even really need to be said? I mean, I guess for the low information normie voters it does. The audio balancing on this is so fucking bad. Like, I genuinely can't tell if we're supposed to be able to hear these people talk.
Meanwhile, Democrats in Congress are threatening to shut down the government over policy.
The Somali community in Minnesota has been the target of the Trump administration. No! No, they haven't been the target enough! Though I do have a tweet on that. After a stunning report in November revealed that scammers in the migrant community engaged in massive fraud, allegedly costing Minnesota taxpayers about $9 billion. Well, we know it's about 18 now. According to prosecutors, 78 alleged scammers, many from Somalia, have been prosecuted in the COVID-era food relief program scam. The ploy involved funneling money from state social services coffers to the nonprofit Feeding Our Future and other organizations. Why is it so fast? Why is it so fast? You whore. To ostensibly feed school children, which we now know it did not feed children, and none of the daycares even have children. Instead, the plot used the funds to splurge on the lavish lifestyles of the nonprofit's workers. According to Minnesota education officials, Feeding Our Future and its affiliated groups submitted over $500 million in claims. While House Oversight Chair James Comer alleges the true losses may have climbed towards 1 billion.
When I watch what is happening in Minnesota, Somalians ripped off that state for billions of dollars. I don't want them in our country. Their country's no good for a reason. Their country stinks.
If all of these politicians that want to start cocksucking to fraudsters are going to be like, all of our accomplishments we owe to the Somalian community, well, then that's great. When we deport them, they'll be able to build Somalia into a functioning country, will they not? That's wonderful. That's great to hear. When they go back, they'll be a boon for their country, right? That's amazing.
We're going to go the wrong way if we keep taking in garbage into our country.
True and real. The DOJ has already convicted 59 of the alleged 78 fraudsters in the scheme. The one judge decided to overturn one of the guys who was like $7 million, specifically just that one guy. You're not going to be able to get any convictions. You're not going to make any convictions stick unless you get rid of the activist judges. You need to root out all of these people that are ruling our country, that hate our country and hate Americans. Kind of wonder if Melissa Hortman was assassinated to cover this as she voted against giving even more money. She didn't vote against giving more money specifically to Somalians, but she voted against giving more healthcare benefits to illegal immigrants. And I did bring that up yesterday as well. I was like, I'm going to cover myself in tinfoil because that's very weird that Melissa Hortman, being the only Democrat to break ranks and vote against giving more benefits to illegal aliens, was then assassinated. That's very strange. It'd be much better to immediately ship out any American that helped the fraud directly to Somalia and revoke their citizenship. I don't think we can do that. So I think charging with treason would be like the ultimate kind of thing we can do. This is a woman who I don't know. Founder and editor-in-chief at RAIR Foundation. I don't know what the RAIR Foundation is. She said, pay attention, it's not Somali fraud, it's Islamic doctrine. Everyone today is hyper-focused on the massive Somali fraud scandal in Minnesota, while conveniently leaving out Islam. The fraud is undeniable. What's being deliberately avoided is the motive. It remains politically safer to talk about the ethnicity or immigration than to use the name, the Islamic scripture, that strictly observant religious Muslims use to justify extracting money from non-Muslims. This is not just greed. Muhammad explicitly established that people of other religions must pay a poll tax to Muslims called jizya, imposed as a marker of inferiority and submission. This is not interpretation, it is stated plainly in the Quran 9:29. Quoted, fight those who do not believe in Allah until they pay the jizya with willing submission and feel themselves subdued. Jizya was a humiliating tribute tax placed on conquered non-Muslims, a permanent condition of subjugation under Islamic rule. In Western welfare states today, many Muslims live on public benefits. Among strictly observant adherents, those payments from non-Muslims or kuffar governments are often viewed as the modern equivalent of jizya. Money infidels are obligated to hand over. No reciprocity, no moral issue with fraud, no obligation to work. The doctrine provides the justification. Non-Muslims in submission must pay. Their wealth is not fully protected. In lands outside Sharia law, Dar al-Harb, traditional Islamic rulings permit taking what is considered owed. This is why the same pattern erupts again and again in observant Muslim migrant communities across America and Europe. Astronomical welfare dependence, organized fraud networks, and billions drained, all rationalized through religious doctrine that turns taxpayers into tribute payers. Media and politicians obsess over the stolen billions, but scream Islamophobia the moment anyone quotes the verse or names the ideology. They refuse to acknowledge the scripture that casts every non-Muslim taxpayer as a dhimmi obligated to fund Muslims. To the truly adherent, your taxes are jizya, enforced submission through the wallet. Enough evasion, quote the scripture, expose the doctrine. America is not Dar al-Islam. We do not pay jizya. Look at the illegal Islamic invaders in the UK. Laugh at their host nation. A migrant uses his smartphone to show his friends back in Somewhereistan all the free money he's getting from British taxpayers. I'm sure he'll be filming his free 4-star hotel room, free food, free clothing, free legal aid, free healthcare, etc., which will encourage more of his fellow freeloaders to invade the country.
So, Here we have a fine gentleman, potentially a future lawyer, who has just received a wad of free cash from the British government and is filming himself, proudly displaying it for all his friends to see.
It's hilarious watching a certain trip over themselves denying the practices. I mean, yeah, Takia, baby. How can anyone defend people stealing from the taxpayer? It's fucking insane. I mean, we saw that, like, lunatic woman in the video from Nick Shirley.
Flashback.
Don't open up!
Ma'am, what do you think about the fraud that's taking place here in Minnesota?
Don't open up! We have ice!
Ma'am, what do you think?
That's not ICE! It's a YouTuber! What the fuck is this woman?
End of flashback.
But I don't know who this guy is. Cynical Publius. Some guy. I don't know who this is. I'm sorry, Smokey. Smokey the Bear. He said, re-fraud in Minnesota. I'm not sure that most Americans understand that in large swaths of humanity, there is no actual concept of fraud, particularly fraud against the government. Instead, there is a belief in the virtue of getting away with what you can to help yourself and your tribe, which again, really made me think of when we learned about ISAT. He says, I spent a lot of my life in the Middle East and Central Asia, working closely with foreign contractors and foreign governments to provide support to American military operations. As a U.S. Army officer with a big checkbook courtesy of Uncle Sam, I can't really count the sheer number of times I was offered bribes to award a contract, or falsify records to do things like create larger fake headcounts at places like dining facilities, or to just simply be on the take for future illegal requests. Of course, I had enough sense to never comply with such requests. Moreover, there were never explicitly structured as bribes. Instead, it was usually along the lines of, here, I have these Rolexes as gifts for you and your wife to show our friendship. Unfortunately, too many U.S. officers and NCOs succumbed to the siren song and ended up breaking rocks in Leavenworth. The weird thing about this to me was that whenever I turned down such an offering, it was treated as a grave insult. I was the one in the wrong, and not the fraudster trying to bribe me. They considered it rude that I was in their country and refused to accept how things got done. After all, why did I not want to help my tribe by helping their tribe? Let me repeat. In these cultures, fraud is not even a concept. There is only what helps your tribe. Such thought processes are so alien to Americans and much of the West. We are raised on the presumption that our institutions are valid, and that the rule of law always prevails, and that integrity is universal. We need these presumptions to have working governments and economies. And without those presumptions, without the mental barrier that causes us not to accept outright fraud, our nation would quickly descend into the economic and social hellscape of countries like, Somalia. So when we import people en masse from cultures that accept bribery and fraud as routine, acceptable ways to advance one's tribe, we should not be surprised that things like $8 billion fraud schemes of the Somali population in Minnesota happen so easily. Introducing a fraud-based culture based on tribalism into America is like introducing some sort of lethal virus into a population that has no natural immunity to it. The virus will spread and grow unchecked because it is so alien to the host. Similarly, a culture of fraud is anathema to American thinking, and it must be cut out before it consumes the host. So when you see and hear patriotic Americans decrying what is happening in Minnesota or elsewhere, and when they seek deportation of the offenders, it is not racism, it is not bigotry, and it is not xenophobia. Instead, it is preserving the American tradition of responsible institutions and national integrity. Yet somehow conservatives know how to handle the issue? No, they don't, or else they would have done something already. Pretty well put. Yeah, I thought it was a pretty well put thing, especially after learning about ISAT and how, there's no concept of fraud. It's just, if you're scamming, you're doing the right thing to help your side, and getting caught is the only thing that's bad. The hammer needs to fall hard on all of the guilty people. Yes, very much so. America's had enough. Snap now burns $145 billion a year. That's $7.8 billion every single month. Recipients spend twice what the average working American spends on groceries because they aren't spending their money, they're spending yours. This isn't helping the poor, this is rewarding dependency and subsidizing foreign populations who arrive to take, not to build. 43 million people are on food stamp. 80% of SNAP users are also on Medicaid. 61% get 2 or more additional welfare programs. And 53.5% of immigrants are on at least one welfare program. It shouldn't be a hot take, but if you are an immigrant to the United States, you should not qualify for any welfare programs. Like, obviously illegals should not be getting anything, despite the fact that they do. But I think if you are here immigrating legally, you should not qualify for any welfare programs. That shouldn't be a hot take, because if you try to go to any other country and you can't prove that you can support yourself, you not only get turned away for living there, if you try to take too long of a vacation, they will also reject you. Nearly 45% of Afghans in the U.S. are receiving free food from you. And now, incredibly, we have Somali migrants in America angrily demanding that their halal food pantry be restocked. Not food, halal food, a Sharia food system funded by the U.S. taxpayer. Halal is not cultural cuisine. Halal is civilization enforcement through supply chains, a Sharia-compliant food system imposed on Western markets by pressure, litigation, and corporate cowardice. People think halal is ancient when it isn't. The global halal industry was engineered in the 1970s and 80s after the 1979 Iranian Revolution, when Iran and Saudi Arabia, competing to export political Islam, partnered with Western multinationals like Nestle to create a certification empire that pushes Sharia norms into non-Muslim economies by stealth. Now the same system sits inside our welfare state, enforced with your money. Spare me the claim that illegals aren't on SNAP, remove illegal alien households, mixed status loopholes, and fraud, and the cost would collapse. 70% of the system exists only because the foreign population is bankrolled. If all benefits were cut off, they would leave. This is something that a lot of us have been saying for ages now. It's not enough to just have mass deportations of illegal aliens. You need to remove all of the benefits that they came here for in the first place. No more free healthcare, no more free housing, no more SNAP, no more food, anything. All of these need to be cut off. And the politicians that were for giving them to illegals, they need to be prosecuted. The companies that were hiring illegal aliens, they need massive fines, and the people that hired them need jail time. You take great offense to being given handouts. Clearly you're a minority in this. I think that social safety nets should be a thing. I think that if somebody loses their job or becomes disabled or ages out of the workforce, there should be a safety net to take care of these people, right? It should exist. We should be able to have it. But we cannot have these high trust social safety nets in a society where we give benefits to people who should not be getting them. When we give people here illegally benefits that they do not deserve to have, it's going to strain our system. When we import cultures that are incompatible with our high trust system and they just defraud it, they start scamming everywhere, they steal billions of dollars, you can't support a system like that. And it shouldn't even be taking courage or strength to remove people scamming and frauding. That should just be the default. You shouldn't want your system scammed and defrauded. Is this your American dream? Because it's not mine. Stop subsidizing your own replacement. Stop feeding people who despise the hand that feeds them. Stop normalizing Sharia in American supply chains. Boycott halal. End welfare for non-citizens. No more Sharia pantries on US dollars. America has had enough. And you see, I didn't even know that halal wasn't like that old. When I see like halal stuff, I always equated it to like kosher stuff, right? It's like if I see kosher stuff in a grocery store, I'm just like, oh yeah, I've seen that for years. That's normal. So let's see what this little video is.
Hello everyone. This is Fahan Organization's Halal Food Shelf. Our food shelf, we started with full. It was so full that you will see the pictures from before. And this is the after. As we all know, the government shutdown has a lot of effect. The food stamp is being shut down. So we are in need of food so we can serve our community, whoever is in need. If you can donate, if you can, even a can of food, everything is appreciated. You can contact us with any information. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Waxaa kusoo dhawaataan Fahan Organization Food Shelf. Food Shelf keeni, masha Allah, wuu buuxay, zaid ayaan u buuxinay.
Nothing says please donate like wearing expensive makeup with nice silk headscarves.
Waxaan ku faraxsanahay inaan siinay ama aan kala qayb qaadanay dad u baahan. Haddana saa ula socotaan waa ogtiin governmentiga shutdown ka jiro. Food stampkii oo la yiri lama soo deynayo bishaanito waxaan dareemayaa inay baahi badan soo bixi doonto community-ga.
I guess they're just repeating the first part, maybe? I don't know, there's no
ugu soo
subtitles.
fakan doonto. Marka insha Allah wixii aan awoodno aan ku donate gareyno donation sadaqo hadday kombooyin group ku yaalaan hadday baasta ku taalo whatever isticmaalayna donation aad rabto inaad bixiso soo bixi.
So why aren't they speaking English? Great question.
oo karsan doonaan. Marka aan wada isdiyaarino insha Allah. Government shutdown effect weyn ayuu noo yeeshay. haddana waaba aragtaan food stamp-ka ayaa la xirayaa. Marka fahan organization xalaal food shelf baahidiisi waa taasaa wixii caawin karo ama donation ama sadaqo whatever ku awoodaan kusoo biiriya insha Allah khayr aad rajeynayna. haddaa wax su'aal qabto ama aragto inaad nagala soo xiriirto Amina Muumin ayaa kala soo xiriiri kartaa insha Allah. Telefonkaygana waa 619.
Sparky, thank you. You're late for someone who needs food. That hijab looks very round every single time. Oh my god. Inshallah, my dudes. Where's the barbecue place? So you're about to order pork. Remember the kosher Coca-Cola in glass bottles that had Hebrew on them and made with real sugar? They stock it during Passover. I remember talking about that too. I like the Jew pickles. I think the kosher dill are better than regular dill. I don't know why, but there's definitely a taste difference. I don't know what the difference is. Says, we got bigger fish to fry, brotatochip. Labor Secretary announces strike team going to Minnesota to investigate rampant fraud. And I hope that's true, because we're going to need a lot more than just a strike team to investigate fraud. We need to start arresting people. There need to start being consequences. If a judge lets someone free who's been implicated in this, that judge needs to be disbarred. They need to be removed. We cannot live like this. This is not a functioning society. And there's a video that the U.S. Department of Labor posted along with it.
Sent a team from the Labor Department to investigate. What's this about fraud tourists?
Well, unemployment insurance fraud is something that the American people don't deserve. You know, the unemployment insurance fund is to be whole for one specific reason, and that's to bridge the gap between when people lose their job at no fault of their own, that they can find a new job, and it's to bridge that gap. When you steal hundreds of millions of dollars from the American taxpayer, we need to find out what is happening. So I did send a letter. The Department of Labor, through the Employment and Training Administration, sent a letter to Minnesotans to say, we want to know what is happening. So please produce those reports. So we're going to send in a UI strike team to find out exactly what's happening on the ground. We will not tolerate fraud under this administration.
Was there this fraud tourism? I'm interested in that. I'm told there were Somalis loading up suitcases with dollars and flying to Africa to deliver it. Is that accurate?
Yeah, that's exactly what we want to find out. And those are the reports that we're demanding by the 1st of January. So when that UI strike team goes in, we can do that full investigation and report to the American people exactly where those dollars have gone.
Glad they announced it ahead of time so they can clean up beforehand. Yeah, that's why it's like, I want these people to stop saying stuff on Twitter like, we got bigger fish to fry, brotatochip, and I want them to just do things. I don't want the tweets talking about doing things. I want the actual doing things to happen. Like FBI Director Kash Patel said, case update, Minnesota fraud scheme. The FBI is aware of recent social media reports in Minnesota. However, even before the public conversation escalated online, the FBI had surged personnel and investigative resources to Minnesota to dismantle large-scale fraud schemes exploiting federal programs. I just don't believe you. I literally don't believe you. Fraud that steals from taxpayers and robs vulnerable children will remain a top FBI priority in Minnesota and nationwide. To date, the FBI dismantled a $250 million fraud scheme that stole federal food aid meant for vulnerable children during COVID. The investigation exposed sham vendors, shell companies, and large-scale money laundering tied to the Feeding Our Future network. And a corrupt activist judge let one of the guys off already. So unless you're going to get rid of these activist judges, it doesn't matter what was investigated. It doesn't matter what we've read from local law enforcement about this. None of this matters. You saying this doesn't matter if you don't get rid of the judges that are just letting them free anyway. The case led to 78 indictments and 57 convictions. Defendants included Abdi Wahab Ahmed Mohammed, Ahmed Ali, Hussein Farah, Abdahali Noor Jasso, Asha Farhan Hassan, Usman Kamara, and Abdirashid Bixi Dul. I really want to say a meme right now, but I know I'd get olived out of my fucking mind. Each charged for roles ranging from wire fraud to money laundering and conspiracy. These criminals didn't just engage in historic fraud, but tried to subvert justice as well. Abdi Majid, Mohammed Noor, and others were charged for attempting to bribe a juror with $120,000 cash. And we read about this. The juror, thankfully, was a good American and reported the bribe instead. Those responsible pleaded guilty and were sentenced, including a 10-year prison term and nearly $48 million in restitution in related cases. The FBI believes this is just the tip of a very large iceberg. We will continue to follow the money and protect children, and this investigation very much remains ongoing. Furthermore, many are also being referred to immigration officials for possible further denaturalization and deportation proceedings where eligible. Good. I hope that this will actually happen. But once again, like, I can't have faith in talking about indictments and convictions when judges are letting people free. I want to celebrate this. I want to see this being a good thing. But more needs to happen to make these cases ironclad.
More and more whistleblowers are coming forward with reports and information about rampant fraud in Minnesota. One of them has been trying to sound the alarm for years, only to be ignored while millions of taxpayer dollars disappeared. More about her story and the real victims next. We are joined today by a would-be whistleblower, someone who tried to call attention to fraud in Minnesota but was ignored. She still works in county government and wanted to speak out. But unfortunately, we do live in a world where cancel culture, doxing, violent threats have all become too common. So she asked us to help protect her identity.
We've read quite a few tweets from an account on Twitter that are from Minnesota people in positions in the government who have tried to go to Tim Walz or to other people and have said that they've been threatened. And so I definitely believe that this is an actual government employee.
Call her Susan. Thank you, Susan, for reaching out and for speaking with us today.
Yeah, of course.
I want to first focus on Minnesota's Housing Stabilization Services. It's the HSS program funded by Medicaid and administered by the Minnesota Department of Human Services. As you know, the program was officially shut down on October 31st after it was said to be just riddled with fraud. You saw all of this up close. You tried reporting it for years. What have you seen for yourself?
So what I witnessed firsthand, there were a lot of red flags. So I would go out to my clients' homes to be there and help them kind of navigate and go through this. And we would have a meet and greet where
I think that this woman was not blurred enough, especially if she wears her hair like this normally. Because, like, I have a feeling that with, like, about 80% accuracy that this is an Asian woman.
The service agreement / contract would be signed, and the so-called provider for the service would say, we will see you weekly, we will be emailing weekly, we will be looking for housing together weekly.
Be if I had glaucoma.
As soon as we'd sign the contracts and they would leave, we would never hear from them again. I would send multiple emails, voicemails, leave voicemails for supervisors. Gone, nothing. And then I would say 2 months later, we would find out that that person is gone or this place is gone. They're no longer there. But meanwhile, the whole few months, there were 0 services provided. Then we'd start the process all over again with a new person coming out. You know, usually it's always someone in their 20s, probably a very entry-level position, when we have to sign new contracts / service agreements, and they would give us the same identical speech. You know, we'll see you weekly. We'll be looking for housing weekly. You'll get weekly reports, weekly emails, lots of contact. No contact, ghosted. And this cycle went on for a period of 2 to 3 years, and there were absolutely 0 services provided.
That seems wild.
Whatsoever. And I made multiple calls to try to get answers, only to be met with no answers, no returned phone calls, no returned emails, nothing. Or I was told that person is gone.
So while taxpayers are paying the price, it seems the clients are the real victims in all of this. And I know one of the reasons you wanted to speak out. Tell us about them.
So these clients are some of the most vulnerable people that we have. They are the homeless. They are the mentally ill. They are the developmentally delayed. They are physically handicapped. They can't advocate for themselves. They can't even...
Thank you for bless you.
They don't even understand most of the paperwork. They don't know what's going on. They don't know who's coming, who's going. So
that's really depressing.
It's crushing for them. And some of these clients do have to sometimes pay for this. Yes, sometimes the county or Medicaid will pick it up, but not always. And they're not getting the services.
So hindsight makes a lot of things make sense, Susan. However, back then you were reporting this to your supervisors. Do you know, did anyone follow up? Did they report to government officials, to law enforcement, or anyone who could have done something about this?
I know we were all reporting at all levels, all of us, and we had several meetings discussing how we felt something very fraudulent was going on. And we all were expressing it. Clinical directors, supervisors, county workers, mental health workers, we were all reporting. But the problem is that when you have a fraudulent agency, right, and they have burner phones and they're here, they're there, they're everywhere, and you don't even know where to drive to find the person, and they don't answer, where do you go, and who do you yell at?
You've had conversations with some of these clients. What did they tell you?
So, for example, I work with this one particular client, and I go into this particular client's home weekly. And every time I talk to her, just get updates, how are your services going? Is your homemaker coming out? Is your IHS worker coming out? Are all these people doing what they're supposed to? And what I hear all the time, and this is across the board, I don't even remember who's supposed to come out on what days. I'm so confused. I don't even understand any of this. I never understand who's coming and who's not.
It's really depressing to hear actual people who need these kind of services and who need help and who aren't capable of dealing with these kinds of life stressors themselves through either mental illness or whatever have you. And they're also part of this entire fraud scheme. It's not just our tax dollars that are getting stolen and going to people who are just funding lavish lifestyles. It's also the people who genuinely need these services getting fucked over. The people that these safety nets are supposed to be for, just getting completely fucked. And that should absolutely make you just as angry when you see these Democrats come out and lie about how they're trying to help, underserved people, or what's that other fucking stupid phrase they use? Vulnerable populations or what the fuck ever, vulnerable people. And it's the actual vulnerable people are the ones being taken advantage of so that you can protect your criminal pets. It's so fucking disgusting.
And it changes. And sometimes they don't come, and I don't know what's going on half the time. These are her words. And it's heartbreaking because she always starts to cry. And she has, cognitive declines and disabilities, so it's super confusing for her. So is that even fair for these people? They're at a huge disadvantage.
So with what you've seen and been through, do you think elected officials are really doing all they can to fight fraud? We know it's not just this HSS pro.
Democrats, it's both. No, it's absolutely not. The Democrats are the ones who protect these people. The Republicans aren't doing anything, but they aren't actively involved in giving these people a way to defraud the system and protecting them once they do. Being a spineless do-nothing is also something you should call out. But it's very, very erroneous to say that this is a both sides issue, because it's not.
Also a moratorium announced on another social program after a 238% spike in applications. Who do you think is to blame for all of this, and what should be done?
I don't know who is to blame per se. Do I think they're doing everything they can to fix it? No, I don't.
Do you think in a way this has been allowed?
Republicans don't know how to hit the brakes. They're terrified of hitting the let's just fix everything switch. And it's incredibly frustrating that they just don't want to flip that switch, man.
To happen since it has gone on for so long?
Oh, yes, absolutely. It's not allowed to happen. Yes, of course. Absolutely.
Madam Chair, I'm Nathaniel M. Olson,
This is the guy
disability
from
advocate for the state
Shirley's
of
video.
Minnesota. I've heard the commissioners and the Department of Human Services, but the one thing that I'm freaking worried about is this freaking fraud that is happening over our state, where there's 600,000 disability people in the state of Minnesota that could suffer. And sadly, it's quite interesting that we have Governor Walz speaking in front of the state and saying that this fraud is nothing but the side.
Why is he short of breath? I can't remember which disabilities he has, but he has a couple of disabilities and he's a disability advocate. So, you know, I make it a point to not like actually make fun of speech patterns of people with genuine disabilities. You know, that's kind of rude.
My people are done suffering. We're done with this fraud. We're done with the Department of Human Services coming up here and saying, oh, we're going to figure this out. This has been too long. The administration knew that this fraud was coming. I've talked to families, parents, everyone have been reaching out to me and saying, oh, this is what is happening to my child. This is what's happening to my child. We're afraid. There is a time to hold our governor accountable, and I'm not seeing it. This fraud is outrageous.
True.
And it makes me sad to see what's happening to our state. This was a great state. It was. But all of this fraud that is coming around here, all these excuses that is happening, needs to stop.
If you had just one word to describe the fraud that's been going on, what would it be?
Complete, total bullshit.
Sounds like that about sums it up. But
yeah, pretty fucking much. Joventino Villa, thank you. Don't just get angry. Let this motivate you to act. 100%. Feel angry, but also keep talking about these things. Keep spreading it. Try to get attention of like your local politicians if you think there might be something going on in your area as well. Right? I'm going to get to some other tabs that talk about how to find out if anything in your area is kind of fraudulent, like what's been going on in Minnesota.
Obviously, very frustrating from someone in your position when your job is to get these people the help that they need.
Very frustrating. It makes me actually really sad. And if people could just see these clients and talk to them and hear their stories, you'd be heartbroken.
That's why we appreciate you bringing them forward. Susan, thank you so much for joining me.
Yeah.
And that will do it for this episode of Liz Collin Reports. We will see you next time.
Thank you, Liz Collin Reports. Brings up another point about all of this. The retards who support this fraud and want to keep these people in the country are also the first people to say our healthcare system is shit and too expensive. It kind of reminds me of that post we read the other day, where it's like, you're not having a conversation with another person. They understand that they're in a spell casting competition, and whatever you say really has no effect on them. So somebody posted this and said, this is how you check daycares in your city. Ask Grok for an extensive list of daycares in your city. Don't pay attention to the list that it gives you. Click the link it provides. Here's an example for Columbus, Ohio, and then go hunting. The first 3 I pulled up were Star Wars names. And so you have like the image of like Grok here, and then it says official search, and it gives you a link here that says childcaresearch.ohio.gov. So ignore the rest of the AI stuff, use the .gov search link. And then they pulled up some childcare ones here. Administrator for 161 Childcare, Hamda Mohammed. Another one over here, they have First Choice Childcare, Farah Ahmed. And then another one, A Better Choice Childcare, Fatuma Zara Abdi. And this kind of makes me think back to the second time I made an ICE report, where I was like, oh, you know, I just gave him a 1 star and no tip on the ride. That should be fine enough. And everyone in chat was like, Kirsche, if you want to actually have something be done, you know, you have to actually stick to what needs to be done. And you should have just sent in a nice tip. And so I did after talking to chat. And I think that's kind of what needs to happen here as well. Is like, if you encounter any of these things, like someone that doesn't speak any English whatsoever, if you find a childcare place with like blacked out windows and no children there whatsoever, You need to be making these reports probably to ICE, because who else are you going to report to when everything else is so corrupt at this point? Be the change you want to see? Yeah, absolutely. Jesus Christ, they were right. You found one already. Yeah. And just like I was telling people in chat, because there were a couple of people yesterday who were like, well, I'm fine with the blacked out windows because pervs. The defense for these childcare services now is they've blacked out the windows to prevent pervert. That is literally the narrative that they are going with in order to defend these fraudulent childcare centers, which is what I said when chatters brought that up yesterday. Blacked out windows in a childcare facility should be a red flag. If this was ran by white people, they'd be looking into it to see if Uncle Bad Touch isn't hired there. Exactly. That was another thing that I didn't even think of yesterday when I was refuting the point that blacked out windows would be a good idea, because what the fuck is wrong with you? It didn't even occur to me that, like, aside from being able to call the police and actually arrest the pervert looking in the windows, the blacked out windows would give more clearance for a pervert on the inside to do things without being caught. Andrew Torba also said, introducing Daycaredata.com. Browse and search 79,000 providers. Search FEC records to find political contributions. Tells you how much government funding each provider received. Built by the Patriots at gab.com. Have fun. 79,000 doesn't seem like a whole heck of a lot, but it's just in the beginning, I suppose. Tell the liberals that conservative Catholics ran the daycare and it'll be investigated faster than a Redditor telling you they're atheist true. Lucky Ducky Daycare. 12 children ages 6 weeks to 12 years and 4 additional school-age children. Government funding received $48,000. That's pretty neat. In the US, aren't there rules on how classrooms should have windows, ventilation, play space? You're pretty sure there's laws about that shit in the UK? There might be. I've never ran a childcare facility, so I've never needed to look into the laws about safety window stuff, question mark? This is, let's see, political record donations. 19 records found for that Lucky Ducky Daycare. Democratic Party donations found. Records show contributions to Democratic Party candidates or committees. 9/30/2024, Democratic. The Harris for president. From Patsy Marie Munoz, retired, $103.06, FEC filing. Interesting. So this one's only $103, but it says there's been 19 total records found, totaling $8,535. Interesting. Hope the boys at Kehoe Roofing get some leads because of this post. That's funny. You believe it's U.S. law that child care centers need to have airlock-style entries. All U.S. schools had to modify their buildings to do this. Interesting. There should be windows for escape in an emergency? Yeah. The blacked out windows on a child care facility should absolutely be a red flag. And someone defending blacked out windows. That's kind of weird. There was also this person quote retweeting Nick Shirley's video, said, just an FYI that all 50 states participate in child care subsidy programs for low-income families through the Federal Child Care and Development Fund, a block grant administered by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services. Ironically, very few states make detailed per-provider subsidy payment and reimbursement data publicly available. So they made it easier to hide this kind of fraud. I'd suggest the Public Freedom of Information Act to this information in their states and make it public to ensure transparency and accountability. And I'm sure that is what Andrew Torba's website pretty much is. If it's hard to find a lot of information in certain states, there's either going to be big gaps in Torba's website, or him and his crew have already used FOIA requests to kind of fill in some of those gaps. Drew Holden saying, the legacy media didn't miss the Minnesota Somalian fraud story. They actively dismissed it as made up, racist, or xenophobic. Before the stories are quietly edited, I've got screenshots. I can't believe this is real, but the AP basically did the Somalians founding America meme as a straight reported piece on how beneficial the community has been in Minnesota. And there's a screenshot of an AP article saying, where would America be without us? A community of refugees is stunned by White House limits. Why is there any kind of lie being pushed that Somalians have done anything ever for America? That doesn't make any sense. That doesn't make any sense, man. Look at what we did around here, said Nasra Hassan, a community health worker whose family came to Minneapolis fleeing Somalia's civil war. Speaking one day after the Trump administration slashed the number of refugees allowed into the U.S. Because of us, this place is thriving. Minnesota's large Somali community was among the immigrant groups that helped revitalize the Lake Street Corridor, which has long called out to newcomers across America. But scattered across the city are other communities and many other businesses built by refugees. They came to escape violence in Mexico, the war in Myanmar. In recent years have seen them arrive from the Congo and the Ukraine. Immigrants are only useful as talking points to belittle their political enemies. Because if they gave a single shit about any kind of refugees escaping war and actual, like, dictatorship-style regimes, there would have been massive outcry when Obama ended wet foot, dry foot, and more of these people would have cared about when Irina Zarutska, who flew here from Ukraine to escape the war, was murdered on public transit. When you escape a war zone and your life is more in danger in an average American city, that should be a wake-up call. But propagandists gonna propagandize. Drew continues, Minnesota Somalis are as Minnesotan as tater tot hot dish, according to CNN. What the fuck is tater tot hot dish? Scorned by the president, Somalis in Minnesota are embraced by the state that took them in. This took 2 people to write it. And yet the wave of vitriol during the Trump administration's continued nationwide immigration crackdown has been met with an opposing wave of solidarity in Minnesota. State leaders have been quick to publicly embrace the community. Yes, because again, the only reason Jacob Frey maintained his mayorship over fucking the Somalian guy running is because he was exploiting blood libel tribal warfare so that the Somalis wouldn't elect someone in, like, a warring tribe with them. Come on, brother man. Irina was an actual refugee fleeing war. How did Somalians flee a civil war after their civil war ends? That's just perpetual civil war, I guess. State leaders have been quick to publicly embrace the community, and some of those emails flooding the inboxes of organizations or organizers were expressions of kindness. People were saying that Minnesota Somalis are as Minnesotan as tater tot hot dish, said Suleiman Adan, deputy executive director of the Minnesota chapter of the Council on American Islamic Relations, describing the tone and content of some of the emails, comparing the community to the state's beloved casserole. Somalis are as Minnesota as the state fair. That is, you know, we belong. How long are people going to be humiliated like this? Like, they know they're lying. We know that they know that they're lying. How many people are gonna continue to be duped? Dear white boomers, you let this happen until the breaking point. It's fucking insane how far lies will carry you. Drew continues, presented without comment. This is the MS Now News. News analysis, Trump's targeting of Somali Americans is having an effect in Minneapolis. Businesses say foot traffic is down in certain neighborhoods, while some residents are carrying passports with them at all times. Drew continues, Trump's attempt to combat fraud is depicted by NBC News as xenophobic. No mention of the multi-billion-dollar scam the community was perpetrating. And the screenshot from, well, he says NBC, but this says PBS. I don't know, maybe they're owned by NBC, I don't know. PBS NewsHour, Trump's threats raise fears in Minnesota's Somali community. President Trump has taken aim at Minnesota's Somali community with xenophobic remarks and calls for their removal from the U.S. It coincides with a new ICE operation in the Twin Cities targeting Somali immigrants. Special correspondent Fred DeSam Lazaro reports on the community's response and how we arrived at this point, including a sweeping fraud scandal that has gripped the state. You know, all these news articles continuously calling any attention on the Somali community's fraud xenophobic reminds me of when I was like, hey, you know, that's kind of weird that there's a mosque being built with UK taxpayer money. That's kind of weird, but you know, also this is part of what Keir Starmer had said previously, and I was called racist, said that I believed in the Great Replacement theory and bullshit. My sponsors got hounded because I dared to point out something that was visibly happening with my eyeball and was talked about by the leader of the UK. Why do they think calls to stop mass fraud or targeting Somalis seems kind of racist to you? Well, it's because it's specifically focusing on the Somalis who are perpetrating the fraud, right? There's one white woman who was a ringleader in the Feeding Our Future fraud scam, but no one else has been held to account, and I would like to see them be held to account. Noam John, thank you. Council on American Islamic Relations, CAIR, is a foreign terrorist organization in multiple states, and there's a bill in the works to declare it as such nationwide. Oh, fuck, you are correct. They just didn't call it CAIR. They, like, expanded the whole name. I wouldn't have caught that. Fucking thank you, Noam John. So, this is the Attorney General of Texas. Ken Paxton takes legal action in lawsuit involving the terrorist organization CAIR. Attorney General Ken Paxton has taken legal action to defend Texas's lawful designation of the Muslim Brotherhood and the Council on American Islamic Relations, or CAIR, as foreign terrorist organizations under Texas law. In a proclamation on November 18, 2025, Governor Greg Abbott declared the Muslim Brotherhood and CAIR foreign terrorist organizations and transnational criminal organizations. Dallas, Fort Worth, and Austin CAIR chapters then sued the state, claiming the proclamation chilled their First Amendment right to free speech. I'm so tired of people that hate us and hate our principles trying to use them against us in order to further subjugate us. Attorney General Paxton's office has now filed a response, noting in part that the local CAIR councils rely entirely on speculative claims and political disagreement with the state's national security determinations and laws, leaving their argument baseless. Radical Islamist terror groups are anti-American, and the infiltration of these dangerous individuals into Texas must be stopped, said Attorney General Paxton. My office will continue to defend the governor's lawful, accurate declaration that CAIR is a foreign terrorist organization, as well as Texas's right to protect itself from organizations with documented ties to foreign extremist movements. CAIR has been designated as a foreign terrorist organization not only by Texas, but also by the state of Florida and the United Arab Emirates, and has been labeled by an FBI special agent as a front group for Hamas. Attorney General Paxton will continue to work to identify and combat foreign terrorist and transnational criminal organizations that threaten public safety, American values, and national security. I think it's a huge deal that even the United Arab Emirates has CAIR listed as a fucking terror group. Even because, like, when you get to the point where, like, the other Arab countries are like, actually, no, fuck you guys. That's kind of some serious business, is it not? Blue Jew had a great point. Most stable Muslim countries don't have these specific problems with the radicals, and it's because they know how to recognize them and how to deal with them. It's the West that would rather tiptoe around them. We need to take a page out of the other Muslim country books on how to deal with the radicals, then, is my opinion here. Governor DeSantis welcomes lawsuit challenging CAIR's terrorist designation. Muslim rights group replies, "See you in court." Ron DeSantis had a lawsuit filed against him by a Muslim civil rights group he recently declared a terrorist organization is very much welcome. DeSantis declared via executive order that the Muslim Brotherhood and the Council on American Islamic Relations are foreign terrorist organizations. CAIR promised a lawsuit alleging defamation and that the order is unconstitutional. The governor, during a news conference about water quality in North Miami Beach Tuesday, said State Attorney General James Uthmeier is ready, willing, and able to be fighting the lawsuit. DeSantis said the lawsuit will give the state discovery rights to the organization's bank records and other information. They have every right to sue, and then we're going to have the right to get the information we need to make sure, DeSantis said. Florida's executive order calls on state agencies to deny material support or resources to the organizations. The Muslim Brotherhood's Islamist ideology is irreconcilable with foundational American principles of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, reflected in the Declaration of Independence and the United States Constitution, especially including the right to religious freedom and the equal protection of the laws. CAIR is a Muslim civil rights group, its website says. CAIR's mission is to protect civil rights, enhance understanding of Islam, promote justice, and empower American Muslims. CAIR is not on the federal government's list of terrorist organizations. The executive order links CAIR and the Muslim Brotherhood. CAIR was designated as an unindicted co-conspirator by the United States government in the largest terrorism financing case in American history, and the court found ample evidence to establish the association of CAIR with terrorist organizations, the executive order states. In 2010, Pew Research called the Muslim Brotherhood without question the world's most influential modern Islamist organization. The executive order asserts that since its founding in Egypt in 1928, The Muslim Brotherhood has developed into a transnational network with a long history of engaging in or supporting violence, including political assassinations and terror attacks on civilians, for the purpose of establishing a worldwide Islamic caliphate and imposing its Islamist system of belief across the globe, including in the United States. Additionally, the Muslim Brotherhood created Hamas in 1987, the primary goal of which is the destruction of the state of Israel and the eradication of Jews in then historic homeland of Judea and Samaria. It continues. I think our executive order is kind of the beginning. I think you're going to see statutory codification of how we handle different terror or designations, DeSantis said. On social media, the governor posted that he hopes lawmakers proposing to stop the creep of Sharia law codify these protections for Floridians against CAIR and the Muslim Brotherhood. Last month, President Donald Trump signed an executive order declaring that certain chapters or other subdivisions of the Muslim Brotherhood shall be considered for designation as foreign terrorist organizations. And what's the point of only doing certain chapters or subdivisions? That's kind of weird. CAIR Florida Interim Director Heba Rahim released the statement following DeSantis' executive order. An attack on our civil rights organization is a direct attack on our constitutional First Amendment rights and an attack on the civil rights of Florida's Muslim community. Governor DeSantis' executive order singles out and defames our community based on an Israel first, a political agenda. Designating a Muslim terrorist organization doesn't make someone Israel first. In the same way that hating communists and rightfully saying they don't want commies to rule over them doesn't make them a Nazi. It's possible to not like both. What do you mean? That's such a strange thing to say. CAIR Florida will not stand idly by while we are defamed and our rights re-denied. We are taking legal action to ensure that all citizens, regardless of their background or political views, are protected equally under the law. We are upholding our commitment. See you in court. Texas Governor Greg Abbott, a Republican, gave the same organizations the same designation last month, and the organizations filed suit there too. I hate these people. I'm just tired of like the blatant lies and having to play the word game with the blatant liars. Like, if I know someone is lying, if I know they are acting in bad faith, it's frustrating having to treat them as if they are telling the truth. Terrorists have rights now. It's also tiresome. There's Florida's DeSantis declares Muslim civil rights group a terrorist organization, which we just read something with more explanation, so I don't think we need to read that. And then Congress website HR 4097 designate CAIR as a terrorist organization act. And this was introduced June 24th, 2025. It's introduced in the House and then referred to the House Committee on the Judiciary. So it hasn't had any kind of votes or any kind of anything going on to it thus far. The act may be cited as a Designate CAIR as a Terrorist Organization Act. Congress finds the following. The Council on American Islamic Relations has been named as an unindicted co-conspirator in the 2007 Holy Land Foundation terrorism financing trial. Multiple state legislatures, including Florida and Arizona, I didn't know about Arizona, have passed resolutions urging avoidance of engagement with CAIR due to its alleged affiliations with terrorist groups. The FBI has suspended all formal contracts with CAIR due to evidence demonstrating a relationship between CAIR and Hamas, designated as a foreign terrorist organization by the United States Department of State, and the monsters behind the brutal attack on the state of Israel. Can we talk? I mean, like, yeah, that's a horrible thing to happen, but like, we can still talk about funding without going into that, I suppose. It's just, I don't know. It says, the monsters behind the brutal attack on the state of Israel on October 7th, 2023, indiscriminately raping, torturing, and killing over 1,200 innocent persons, including Israelis, Americans, and other nationals, among whom were babies and Holocaust survivors, and taking 240 Israelis, Americans, and other civilians as hostages. This hostage situation, I do remember that taking an immensely long time to resolve. Like, I remember hearing stuff about the hostages being taken for a ridiculously long time. Since October 7th, 2023, Hamas terrorists and their allies have launched over 11,500 rockets into southern and central Israel, the sole goal of which was to kill Israeli civilians. Hamas and Iranian leadership have called for the extermination of Israelis, Americans, Jews, and Christians around the world and the establishment of a global Islamic caliphate. The stated goal of Hamas and its allies is the complete and total destruction of the state of Israel and the Jewish people. And I mean, like, yes, if you have an organization like CAIR blatantly lying to you and their goal is a global Islamic caliphate, the only way to deal with this is to mark them as a terrorist organization. But yeah, it's a bill proposed to our Congress to just federally designate them as a terror org. And then the White House here, presidential actions, designation of certain Muslim Brotherhood chapters as foreign terrorist organizations and specially designated global terrorists, November 24th, 2025. By the authority vested in me as president by the Constitution and the laws of the United States of America, including the Immigration and Nationality Act and the International Emergency Economic Powers Act, it is hereby ordered. This order sets in motion a process by which certain chapters or other subdivisions of the Muslim Brotherhood shall be considered for designation as foreign terrorist organizations, consistent with Section 219 of the INA, and specially designated global terrorists consistent with the IEEPA and Executive Order 13224 of September 23, 2001, blocking property and prohibiting transactions with persons who commit, threaten to commit, or support terrorism, as amended. Hold on, wait a minute. There's a certain dog shocking streamer that I can think of as a supporting terrorism person. Are you saying that there's a way that we can block Hassan from owning property and having financial transactions due to his support for terrorism? Is this a thing that can happen? Should I link this to the Blue Jew and ask some questions? All right, question has been asked. Question has been asked. Someone with more knowledge on that kind of stuff than me. That would be helpful. Usually when they're talking support in legal situations like that, they're referring to direct financial or material. Yeah, I'm thinking that it might not apply because you're right, it could be direct financial or material support. But if he platformed someone from the group and didn't denounce the terrorisms, maybe that could count. I have no idea. We'll have to see. It's an interesting find. Muslim Brotherhood, founded in Egypt in 1928, has developed into a transnational network with chapters across the Middle East and beyond. Relevant here, its chapters in Lebanon, Jordan, and Egypt engage in or facilitate and support violence and destabilization campaigns that harm their own region, United States citizens, and United States interests. For example, in the aftermath of the October 7, 2023 attack in Israel, the military wing of the Lebanese chapter of the Muslim Brotherhood joined Hamas, Hezbollah, and Palestinian factions to launch multiple rocket attacks against both civilian and military targets within Israel. What's really interesting to me about the Muslim Brotherhood discourse is that, nobody really defended the Muslim Brotherhood until recently. And, even a mainstream TV channel like A&E, in their Cults and Extreme Beliefs docuseries, they had an episode on the Muslim Brotherhood and how bad of an organization the Muslim Brotherhood was. And so it's I don't understand where all of the defense of this organization came from. Obama defended them? What the fuck? Caleb Hammer actually roasted Hassan for being so enamored with communism and basically called him an idiot. Good on Caleb, bro. A senior leader of the Egyptian chapter of the Muslim Brotherhood on October 7th, 2023 called for violent attacks against United States partners and interests, and Jordanian Muslim Brotherhood leaders have a long provided material support to the militant wing of Hamas. Such activities threaten the security of American civilians in the Levant? I almost wanted to say Levenant, but that's Levant. And other parts of the Middle East, as well as the safety and stability of our regional partners. Section 2, it is the policy of the United States to cooperate with its regional partners to eliminate the capabilities and operations of the Muslim Brotherhood chapters designated as foreign terrorist organizations pursuant to Section 3 of this order. Deprive those chapters of resources and thereby end any threat such chapters pose to the United States nationals or national security of the United States. And see, what I don't get here is why bother delineating specific chapters? Because it's if you want to be a civil rights organization, maybe don't take the name of terrorist organizations is just a thought, maybe? So it feels like you should just be able to designate the whole goddamn thing as a terrorist org, and if anybody wanted to do something good and not be a part of a terrorist org, they would just break from it and make their own thing. Within 30 days of the date of this order, the Secretary of State and the Secretary of the Treasury, after consultation with the Attorney General and the Director of National Intelligence, shall submit a joint report to the President through the Assistant to the President for National Security Affairs concerning the designation of any Muslim Brotherhood chapters or other subdivisions, including those in Lebanon, Jordan, and Egypt, as foreign terrorist organizations consistent with a bunch of U.S. code stuff, and specially designated global terrorists consistent with other U.S. code stuff. Within 45 days of submitting the report required by subsection A of this section, Secretary of State and Secretary of the Treasury, as applicable, will take all appropriate action consistent with the orders as applicable with regard to the designation of any Muslim Brotherhood chapters or subdivisions described in Section 1 of this order as foreign terrorist organizations and specially designated global terrorists. So, I mean, that's great. I like that. I like that this is in the footsteps of what happened in Texas, Florida, and also apparently Arizona. I didn't know about that one. But it still feels a little odd that it's like only certain chapters. It's just like it should just be the whole organization, in my opinion. Drew continues his thread. This isn't just journalism, it's hackery. Time dedicated a whole section in a piece about the connection between Somalis and fraud allegations to how Democrats have condemned the accusations targeting Somalis. Maybe now would be a good time to revisit them. What do the Somalis in Minnesota and Governor Tim Walz have to do with fraud allegations? In Trump's latest tirades against the Somalis in the state, he flagged supposed incidences of corruption and fraud involving Somalis living in Minnesota, particularly in relation to welfare programs. But even before the shooting, Trump had already scrutinized the Somali presence in Minnesota. During his first term, he targeted them at a rally, saying leaders in Washington brought large numbers of refugees to Minnesota without considering the impact on schools and communities and taxpayers. But that's just correct. That's just like true. What? That's not even an attack. That's again just pointing out what's actually happening. More recently, he claimed in a November 21st Truth Social post that Somali gangs are terrorizing the people of that great state, and billions of dollars are missing. And he announced he would end temporary protected statuses for Somalis effective immediately, causing alarm among the Somali population in Minnesota. Well, I mean, we found out that there's only like a couple thousand Somalis who have the protected status, so removing that, great first step, but we need faster deportations, brother man. Democrats have condemned the accusations targeting Somalis in Minnesota. Rep. Omar, in response to Trump's threat of ending TPS benefits immediately for Somalis, said on November 24th, even little kids in 8th grade know that that is not an authority that the president has and can wield. I really think we should stop letting foreigners hold political positions in our government. The federal government is required by statute to publish a notice in the Federal Register 60 days before ending a TPS protection. Minnesota State Attorney General Keith Ellison also suggested in a post on X that he may seek legal recourse if Trump immediately removes the TPS protections. Trump's announcement of termination of Somali TPS holders in Minnesota is legally problematic. While a president does have a lot of authority to designate and revoke TPS, he cannot legally wield that power to discriminate against an ethnic group or to target a state like Minnesota, Ellison said. This ain't over. Man, all these people look really fucking bad the more fraud gets uncovered. Drew continues in his thread here. A side note of sorts, NPR suggested, I think rightly given what's happened, that the large Somali community in Minnesota was in part there because of the state's welcoming social programs. Maybe a little more reporting on that was deserved. And it's NPR saying Trump says he's terminating legal protections for Somali migrants in Minnesota. Minnesota has the nation's largest Somali community. Many fled the long civil war in their East African country and were drawn to the state's welcoming social programs. That's an interesting thing to say now that we know exactly how much fraud has been going on. Now that we have some pretty big fucking numbies. What an interesting thing to say. I wonder why they could have possibly have been drawn to the welcoming social programs. How many migrants would be affected by Trump's announcement that he wants to end a temporary protective status could be very small. A report produced for Congress in August put the numbers of Somalis covered by the program at just 705 nationwide. The Washington Post took considerable pain to quote people who defended the Somali community in Minnesota, absent all evidence against the supposedly bigoted immigration deployment by Trump. This included the Minnesota AG, who failed to stop the outrage. Trump says he'll cancel the TP status of Somalis in Minnesota. And the quotes that Drew has collected here. Minnesota Attorney General Keith Ellison said his office was monitoring the situation and exploring all of our options. Donald Trump cannot terminate TPS for just one state or on a bigoted whim, he said in an online statement. The picture being painted tonight about Somali Minnesotans is not reality, he said. Well, reality would like to have a word with you, Mr. Corrupt Attorney General. A small number of individuals have committed fraud in Minnesota. You can't really say it's a small number of individuals when there are literal enforcement officers that come out of the woodwork to start intimidating people who are asking questions or even trying to just talk to the Somali population in Minnesota. And you can't really say that when literally everyone that gets spoken to seems to have an idea about what's going on and has slotted NPC lines to give people who are asking questions. This is just like when people started pointing out how deranged some of the like trans activists were. People were like, oh, well, it's just a small vocal minority. And it turned out that the small minority were the actual dysphoric people. This guy has so many examples of articles. Like, look at this. Look at how long this is. Look at how long this is. Oh, 4 hours ago? Hold on. Surely more fraud to be uncovered. Hopefully Congress and the Trump admin will keep kicking the tires in Minnesota and beyond. The Oversight Committee saying this is outrageous. Tim Walz let foreign criminals exploit American taxpayer dollars and seems to have looked the other way. We're investigating the Somalian fraud ring in Minnesota. The truth will come out. Pope Leo the, 14th, slams conservatives for wanting to deport criminal illegal immigrants. God will judge you based on how you treated the foreigners.
In the first place, the role of the church is to preach the gospel. And just a couple of days ago, we heard Matthew's Gospel, chapter 25, which says, Jesus says very clearly, at the end of the world, we're going to be asked, how did you receive the foreigner? Did you receive him and welcome him or not? And I think that there's a deep reflection that needs to be made in terms of what's happening. Many people who have lived for years and years and years, never causing problems, have been deeply affected by what's going on right now. The spiritual rights of people who have been detained should also be considered, and I would certainly invite the authorities to allow pastoral workers to attend to the needs of those people. Many times they've been separated from their families for a good amount of time. No one knows what's happening, but their own spiritual needs should be attended to.
And it's like when you have like the Pope saying stuff like this, even if you're one of the like, not my Pope, get out of here, satanic Pope people. This is kind of like where all of the churches are getting informed from. And so if the top is this paused, you can't expect that everywhere else is going to reject it.